There are 5 secret body parts men love to be touched, but they will never tell you, not because they're shy, not because they don't like it, but because these touches affect them so deeply that they lose control of their emotions, their confidence, and even their thoughts. Every man has these sensitivity zones, hidden under his normal behavior, his silence, and his pride. And the moment you touch him in these places, even casually, you trigger a reaction he can't hide. His heartbeat changes, his posture changes, and suddenly you become the only woman in the room his mind focuses on. Women who understand these hidden spots don't need to try too hard. They don't need to chase. They don't need to ask questions. Their touch does all the work quietly, powerfully, and effortlessly. And today I'm going to reveal all 5 of them one by one so you understand exactly how men think, how their bodies react, and how a simple touch can create instant connection and unforgettable attraction. But before we dive into these powerful secrets, make sure you hit that subscribe button, tap the like button, and turn on notifications, because I'm about to teach you the kind of insights about men that they never say out loud, but desperately wish you knew. When it comes to touching a man in a way that lights up his senses and pulls him closer without a single word, the back of the neck is one of the most powerful and underestimated spots. Most men would never admit how deeply this area affects them because it taps into something primal, something rooted in instinct, vulnerability, and desire all at once. The nape of the neck is where a man's confidence and sensitivity meet, and when a woman touches him there, it creates a reaction he cannot control, no matter how composed he pretends to be. The back of the neck is full of nerve endings, and unlike the obvious places that people typically think of as sensitive, this area remains hidden, protected, and rarely touched. That's exactly why your touch there feels different. It slips past his guard. It doesn't feel like a flirtatious gesture he can prepare for. It feels like a moment his body reacts to before his mind catches up. A gentle stroke on the nape, your fingers brushing lightly at the base of his hairline, or even a playful tug when you're close, all of this sends a wave of warmth down his spine and anchors his attention straight onto you. For a man, this touch creates an immediate mix of comfort and excitement. It makes him feel safe, appreciated, and desired at the same time. Most men go through their daily lives without experiencing this kind of gentle affection. They're used to being strong, being tough, being unshaken. But when a woman reaches for the back of his neck, it bypasses that strong layer and goes straight to something more intimate, something softer. It tells him, without words, that he can relax, that he doesn't have to be the unbreakable one for a moment, that someone else can take the lead, even if it's just through a touch. A simple moment. Maybe you're walking behind him and you place your palm at his nape. Maybe you're sitting next to him and your fingers drift up to the back of his neck. Instantly shifts the dynamic between you. He feels seen. He feels chosen. He feels your presence in the most personal way. And this is why men rarely talk about it. Admitting that something so gentle affects them so strongly feels vulnerable. It exposes how much a single touch can sway them emotionally and physically. Many men have learned to hide softness, but that doesn't mean they don't crave it. They crave it deeply. This touch also triggers his subconscious protective instincts. It reminds him that you're close enough, trusted enough, and meaningful enough to access a part of him that others can't. When you place your fingers lightly on the back of his neck, even for a second, he instinctively leans into it. His body language changes. His shoulders loosen. He might shift slightly toward you, almost without noticing. It's a natural reaction, like a magnet responding to another magnet. It makes him feel grounded, secure, and intensely connected. There's also something incredibly intimate about proximity. To touch the back of his neck, you must be close to him, closer than casual acquaintances ever get. That closeness alone creates electricity. Your breath, your presence, your energy all flow into that moment. Men don't forget these touches. Even if it's brief, even if it seems casual to you, it stays in his memory as a moment that felt unusually warm, unusually comforting, or unusually attractive. Many men will replay those moments silently, wondering if you meant something by it or if it was just natural for you to touch him that way. Another dimension of this touch is reassurance. When a man is stressed, worried, or lost in his thoughts, Placing your hand gently on the back of his neck has a calming effect. It tells him you're there. It tells him he's not alone. It tells him he doesn't have to carry everything by himself. Men rarely receive this kind of silent, emotional support, and that's what makes it so powerful. It doesn't need big words. It doesn't need explanations. It's pure presence. In romantic situations, the back of the neck becomes even more meaningful. A playful tickle there, a soft scratch with your nails, or lightly tracing his hairline when you hug him from behind creates a burst of desire he cannot hide. It's intimate without being explicit. It's sensual without being overwhelming. It makes him feel wanted in a way that boosts both his confidence and his emotional connection to you. And it's important to note that this touch works best when it feels natural, not forced or overly dramatic. A gentle, effortless motion often has the biggest impact. It becomes your signature gesture, something he associates with comfort, attraction, and affection all at once. Over time, he begins to lean into it faster, react more visibly, and even miss it when it's not there. That's when you know that your touch has become something he quietly craves. The back of the neck is powerful not because it's sexual, but because it's intimate. It's the place where physical sensitivity meets emotional vulnerability. When you touch him there, you're not just making him feel good, you're creating a connection that stays with him long after your hand moves away. The lower back is one of the most quietly sensitive places on a man's body, and what makes it so powerful is that it carries a mix of emotional and physical reactions that men rarely talk about. When you touch a man's lower back, even lightly, you enter a space that feels intimate without being obvious, comforting without being demanding, and attractive without trying too hard. It's a gesture that slips under his emotional armor and affects him in a way he often won't admit, because it makes him feel both cared for and desired in a way that catches him off guard. A man's lower back is connected to a powerful set of muscles, nerves, and instincts. It's the part of his body that supports him every day, when he stands tall, when he bends, when he moves, when he works. It's tied to strength and stability. So when a woman touches this area, especially gently, he feels it on a deeper level than he expects. Your touch tells him that someone is looking out for him. Someone sees the man behind the strength. Someone is offering comfort he usually doesn't receive. Men often carry unspoken tension in this area. They rarely show pain, rarely admit stress, and rarely talk about the pressure they feel to constantly hold everything together. That tension settles in their lower back, stiff muscles, tight movements, and silent fatigue. When your hand lands there, even briefly, it sends a calming signal through his body. It feels like someone is finally easing the weight he's been silently carrying. He might exhale without realizing it. His posture might soften. His body relaxes into your touch almost instinctively. This touch becomes even more powerful in social settings. When you lightly place your hand on the small of his back as you walk past him, guide him through a crowd, or stand close beside him, it sends him a message that feels both protective and attractive. To him, it feels like you're claiming him subtly, not in a controlling way, but in a supportive, intimate way. It makes him feel wanted, accompanied, and connected. Men rarely get this kind of physical reassurance. So when it happens, it lingers in their mind far longer than you think. What makes this touch different from others is that it feels intentional even when it's casual. A simple brush of your fingers along his lower back can send warmth through his body. It brings him into the moment instantly. It signals closeness and trust. He knows you wouldn't touch him there unless you felt comfortable around him, and that makes him feel special, seen, and important. Even if he tries to act normal on the outside, inside he's noticing everything: the softness of your hand, the warmth of your skin, how close you are, and what it means. Another reason men love this touch but don't talk about it is because it taps into something instinctive. The lower back is a protective zone. It's where the body is most vulnerable in survival terms. The fact that he allows you into that space shows a level of unspoken trust. And the fact that you choose to touch him there shows him you feel safe with him too. That unspoken mutual trust creates a powerful emotional connection that words can't fully express. In romantic situations, this touch becomes even more charged. When you slide your hand onto his lower back during a hug, rest it there while you lean into him or hold him from behind. It sends a surge of warmth straight through him. It's grounding, sensual, and emotionally intimate without needing to be sexual. It's the kind of touch that makes him feel desired in a quiet, meaningful way. Like your body is speaking to his body with a message that says, I'm here with you. And there's something else. The lower back touch has a guiding energy to it. When you gently steer him with your hand, it gives him a feeling he secretly enjoys, that you're close enough to guide him and soft enough to care. Men often feel like they have to lead, push forward, and make all the decisions. When you touch him lightly at the lower back, you reverse that role for a moment. You guide him, you direct him, you take charge gently, and men find that incredibly attractive, even if they never admit it. Over time, your touch becomes something he anticipates. He will start to lean slightly forward when you walk behind him without even thinking about it, hoping your hand will land there. When you stand next to him, he might subtly shift closer to give you access to that space. And when he feels stressed or overwhelmed, the memory of your hand at his lower back becomes a quiet comfort he carries with him. What makes this gesture so powerful is that it communicates multiple things at once. It says, I feel safe around you. It also says, I'm drawn to you. It's gentle but meaningful. It's simple but unforgettable. Men might not voice it, but they crave this kind of closeness because it speaks to both their need for tenderness and their desire to feel valued by someone they care about. Touching a man's lower back isn't just physical, it's emotional, instinctive, grounding, and intimate all at once. It shows him that you're not afraid to get close, that you're paying attention to him, and that your presence is something he can lean into. It's one of the quietest gestures, but it leaves one of the loudest impressions. The inner forearm is one of the most unexpectedly sensitive places on a man's body, and the reason he loves to be touched there, though he'll rarely admit it, is because it blends physical sensitivity with emotional closeness in a way that catches him off guard. Unlike more obvious areas, the inner forearm isn't sexual in a traditional sense, but it carries an intensity that feels intimate, personal, and deeply connective. When you touch a man there, even lightly, it delivers a message that feels both gentle and electrifying. It's the kind of touch that slips into his memory and stays there long after the moment has passed. This part of the arm is filled with nerve endings that react very quickly to temperature, pressure, and movement. Most men don't realize how responsive this area is until someone they're attracted to touches it. A simple brush of your fingers along the inside of his arm can spark a rush of warmth that moves up toward his shoulder and down toward his hand. It wakes up his senses without feeling overwhelming. It's the kind of touch that feels accidental, but carries more meaning than either of you might say out loud. What makes the inner forearm even more powerful is its emotional symbolism. When someone touches your forearm, it's usually a sign of connection, reassurance, or care. It doesn't feel aggressive or forward. It feels quietly intimate. So when you touch a man there, it sends a subtle message that you're comfortable with him. It shows that you're close enough emotionally to reach for him in a natural, effortless way. Men notice this even if they pretend they don't. They're aware of the way your hand feels on their skin, the softness of your touch, and the meaning behind such a gentle gesture. Another reason men secretly love this kind of touch is because it feels personal. He might shake dozens of hands in a day, but almost no one touches his inner forearm. It's a private area in a social sense, still appropriate, still innocent, but rarely accessed by anyone except someone who feels a deeper connection to him. When your fingers graze that spot as you talk to him, laugh with him, or walk beside him, it makes him feel chosen. It makes him feel like you're inviting him into a more intimate, quiet space that only the two of you share. It's also a touch that creates anticipation. When you slide your fingers along his forearm while telling a story or pointing something out, his body reacts before his mind can process what's happening. The subtle contact causes a small spike of adrenaline, nothing overwhelming, just enough to make him more aware of you, more tuned into your energy, more attentive to your presence. That moment lingers in his memory long after the conversation ends because the sensation is tied to the emotions he felt when you touched him. Warmth, closeness, interest, connection, these stay with him. Men also love when a woman touches their inner forearm because it makes them feel seen. Most men aren't used to gentle affection. They're used to being the strong one, the protector, the one offering comfort. But when you run your fingers along his inner arm, it flips that dynamic in the softest possible way. You're offering him tenderness, and men rarely experience that in their day-to-day lives. It makes them feel valued, cared for, and wanted in a way they don't often talk about. This touch becomes even more meaningful during conversation. When you lightly hold his forearm to emphasize a point, reassure him, or draw his attention, it sends a signal directly to his emotional center. It says, I trust you, I'm comfortable with you, and even I'm drawn to you. And because it happens in such a natural, effortless way, it doesn't feel forced or dramatic. It feels authentic. Men respond strongly to authenticity, especially when it comes in the form of gentle physical contact. In romantic or flirtatious situations, touching the inner forearm becomes even more charged. If you trace your fingers slowly along his skin, maybe while sitting close together or during a quiet conversation, it builds a slow, warm tension that he feels deeply. It's not as bold as grabbing his hand or touching his chest. It's subtler, more teasing, more intriguing. It gives him the sense that something deeper is happening between you, even if it's just a moment of shared energy and unspoken attraction. And then there's the visual aspect. When you touch his inner forearm, he sees your hand on his skin. He watches how your fingers move, how gentle you are, how confident or playful your gesture feels. Visual touch amplifies emotional reaction. Even if you're not doing anything intentionally seductive, the sight of your hand on his arm creates a physical memory he'll replay when he's thinking about you later. Over time, this touch becomes something he associates specifically with you. If you often touch him there while talking or walking together, he will begin to look forward to it. He'll lean in slightly when you're close. He'll subconsciously angle his arm toward you. Your touch becomes familiar, comforting, and quietly addictive. It becomes a form of closeness he silently wants more of. The inner forearm is powerful because it blends the emotional and physical worlds in the softest possible way. It's gentle but unforgettable, innocent but intimate, simple but deeply meaningful. And men love it precisely because it makes them feel something they rarely allow themselves to feel: tenderness, vulnerability, connection. It's a touch that says everything without forcing anything. And because of that, it stays with him far longer than you may realize. A man's chest, especially the area near his collarbone, is one of the most emotionally charged and quietly sensitive places you can touch without making the moment overly intense. It's a spot that carries meaning far beyond physical sensation. When you touch him there, you're stepping into a space that represents strength, masculinity, vulnerability, and affection all at once. And men feel this deeply, even though most of them will never say it out loud. What makes this area so powerful is not just the touch itself, but everything it communicates on a subconscious level. A man's chest is often tied to his identity. It's where he holds posture, confidence, and a sense of protection. It's the part of his body he instinctively puffs out when he feels proud, excited, or attracted. It's also the area he guards when he feels threatened, nervous, or unsure. So when your hand lands on his chest or near his collarbone, it bypasses all the walls he presents to the world. It feels like you're touching the core of him, the part of him that wants to be strong for you but also wants to be held. That duality is what makes this touch so meaningful. When you touch his chest casually, like fixing his shirt collar, brushing lint off his shoulder, adjusting his jacket, or resting your hand there during a hug, it sends a surge of warmth through his body. He may keep a straight face, but inside he's fully aware of the closeness, the softness of your touch, and the way your presence feels against him. Men are highly responsive to subtle gestures that show care. They don't need dramatic affection. They crave small, genuine moments that feel natural and sincere. And the chest is one of the few places where a small touch carries huge emotional weight. This touch also makes him feel seen in a way that hits differently from touches on his arms or back. When your hand is on his chest, he feels emotionally exposed, but in a comforting way. It's a place where his heartbeat is closest to the surface. Even if you don't feel it, he knows you're right there near it. There's something deeply intimate about that idea, the thought that you're touching a place connected directly to his most vulnerable human part. It creates a sense of trust without a single word being spoken. There's also something grounding about this kind of touch. Imagine placing your hand flat on his chest during a moment of conversation, affection, or reassurance. He feels anchored. He feels safe. He feels like you're giving him emotional support simply through your presence. Most men aren't used to being comforted. They're used to giving comfort. So when you flip that dynamic by placing your hand near his collarbone or upper chest, it melts him in ways even he doesn't fully understand. It tells him he doesn't have to hold everything together by himself. In moments of flirtation or growing attraction, this touch becomes even more powerful. When you place your hand on his chest during a laugh, a hug, or a playful moment, it sends a clear message. you feel comfortable with him, and you enjoy being close. Men adore this because it gives them confidence. It reassures them that their presence affects you. It makes them feel masculine in the most positive, healthy way, not dominant but desired. Many men struggle to know if a woman likes them unless she shows it physically in small ways like this. A touch on the chest is one of the clearest signals he can receive. The collarbone area specifically is filled with nerve endings. A gentle stroke along the collarbone, a light trace with your fingers, or a soft press when you're standing close can send subtle chills through him. It's intimate but not too bold. It feels intentional, but still safe. It's the perfect middle ground between affection and attraction. And because this area is close to his neck, shoulder, and heart, your touch there tends to blend emotional closeness with physical sensitivity in a way that affects him more deeply than you might expect. Men also love the visual aspect of this touch. When he looks down and sees your hand resting on his chest, it creates a moment of connection he can physically see. It makes him feel chosen, claimed in a warm way, and appreciated. This is especially true if you do it during a conversation or a moment where he's being vulnerable. It reinforces the idea that you're present with him, not just listening, but emotionally supporting him. He won't say it, but he'll remember it and he'll crave that feeling again. Another reason this touch matters so much is because it symbolizes trust. His chest is where he's most physically strong, yet emotionally exposed. When you touch him there, he feels like you're acknowledging both sides of him. The man who wants to protect you and the man who wants to feel safe with you. That combination is incredibly powerful. It creates a bond that feels mature, mutual, and balanced. Over time, this touch becomes something he looks forward to, something that calms him, reassures him, or excites him depending on the context. He might lean slightly toward you when you're standing close. He might wrap his arm around you quicker, hoping you'll rest your hand near his collarbone. He might even initiate hugs more often because that area of his body has now become associated with your warmth and presence. Touching his chest is meaningful because it communicates emotions that words often fail to express. It shows affection, trust, interest, comfort, and connection all at once. It's a subtle gesture, but one that leaves a deep imprint. Men love this touch not because it's bold or dramatic, but because it's quietly intimate, and intimacy, when given gently, becomes unforgettable. The hands are one of the most surprisingly intimate places a man loves to be touched. Yet he will almost never admit it because it exposes a vulnerability he's not used to showing. A man's hands are symbols of everything he believes he must be: strong, capable, reliable, protective. They're the tools he uses to work, to build, to defend, to express. So when a woman touches his hands with softness, intention, or affection, it hits him in a way that feels deeper than the gesture itself. It makes him feel chosen, grounded, and emotionally connected in a way he doesn't usually allow himself to feel. Touching a man's hands does something unique. It quiets his mind. Men often carry their stress in silence, tucked into their daily actions and routines. Their hands are always working, always busy, always active. When you gently trace your fingers along his knuckles, hold his hand lightly, or run your thumb across his palm, it forces him to slow down internally. That soft contact gives him a kind of peace he rarely experiences. It feels intentional, soothing, and intimate, and even if he doesn't react outwardly, something shifts inside him. What makes the hands especially sensitive is the symbolism behind the gesture. Anyone can pat him on the back or tap his shoulder. But touching someone's hands, especially tenderly, is personal. It's something reserved for people who matter, people who are close, people who share an emotional connection. When you reach for his hands, you're saying something quietly powerful. I feel close to you. I trust you. I want to connect with you. Men notice that. Even if he pretends he doesn't, he absolutely feels it. When you hold his hand, even briefly, it triggers a mix of emotions: comfort, warmth, pride, protectiveness, and desire. The feeling of your fingers intertwined with his is something he'll remember long after the moment has passed. It's simple, but profound. It tells him he's important to you. It tells him he's safe with you. It tells him you want connection without needing to speak it out loud. That unspoken message is incredibly powerful for a man. The softness of your touch against the roughness or warmth of his hands creates a contrast that heightens the sensation. Men are not used to gentle affection. They're used to giving it, not receiving it. So when your fingers explore the lines of his palm or you hold his wrist lightly while talking to him, he feels a rush of emotion he may not be prepared for. It's a comforting vulnerability, one that pulls him closer to you because it makes him feel human, understood, and appreciated in moments of closeness, such as sitting beside each other, laughing together, or sharing a private conversation. Touching his hands deepens the connection instantly. If you tap the back of his hand while talking, play with his fingers unconsciously, or gently rest your hand over his, it creates a sense of intimacy that words alone can't create. He becomes more present, more attentive to you, more aware of your energy. Men often fall for women through these small moments, the moments where affection is felt rather than spoken. There's also an emotional reassurance that comes from hand touching. When you hold his hand during a stressful situation, a heartfelt conversation, or even while walking, he feels supported. It's as if you're telling him, "I'm with you." You don't have to face this alone. Men deeply value loyalty and emotional steadiness. Even if they don't talk about it, your touch shows him that you're there, not just physically, but emotionally. That kind of support builds trust, attachment, and confidence in the connection. In romantic moments, touching his hands becomes a silent language of its own. Running your thumb across his knuckles, tracing his veins lightly, or holding his hands close to your chest can create a warmth that spreads through his entire body. It's not bold or forward, but it's intensely intimate. It pulls him toward you emotionally and physically. Men often feel desire through subtle intimacy, not just obvious physical expressions. The way you touch his hands can make him feel more connected to you than any dramatic gesture could. The hands are also a place where men express affection without realizing it. When you touch his hand and he responds by intertwining fingers, turning his palm upward, or holding you a little tighter, it's his way of saying, "I want more closeness. I'm letting you in." His reaction to that touch can tell you more than his words ever could. Some men will shyly brush the inside of your hand. Some will squeeze gently. Some will stroke your fingers without thinking. All of these actions show that your touch affects him more than he expected. Over time, this type of touch becomes something he associates with comfort, connection, and desire. He begins to crave it, not in a dependent way, but in a meaningful way. When he sees your hand near his, he might subtly move closer. When you sit together, he might let his hand rest between you, hoping you'll reach for it. When he says goodbye, he might hold your hand a little longer than necessary. That's when you know your touch has made a place in his emotional world. Touching a man's hands is powerful because it bypasses all his defenses. It doesn't challenge his pride. It doesn't make him feel pressured. It simply makes him feel valued, seen, and emotionally connected. It creates a warm, safe space where he doesn't have to perform, impress, or pretend. He can just be himself, knowing your touch accepts him exactly as he is. Men love this touch, not because it's dramatic, but because it's genuine, it's tender, it's intentional, and it turns a simple gesture into an emotional thread that ties the two of you together. Your touch on his hands becomes a language, soft, subtle, but deeply meaningful. It communicates affection, trust, connection, and attraction all at once, and that's why it stays with him long after your fingers slip away. A truly intimate connection isn't built on grand gestures. It's shaped in those small, intentional moments where you make him feel seen, wanted, and understood. When you touch him in places he secretly loves but rarely talks about, you communicate something deeper than words ever could. You show him that you pay attention, that you understand his body language, and that you care about what makes him feel desired. These subtle touches can shift the entire energy of your relationship, making him feel confident, appreciated, and irresistibly drawn to you. In